Laci Denise Peterson was an American woman killed while 8 months pregnant with her first child. Laci's husband, Scott Lee Peterson, was convicted of first-degree murder for her death and second-degree murder for the death of their unborn son. Originally sentenced to death, Scott's sentence was overturned in 2020, and, in 2021, he was resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Scott has maintained his innocence. Laci was born May 4, 1975, to Sharon Anderson and Dennis Robert Rocha, who had met in high school and owned a dairy farm west of Escalon, California. Laci's older brother, Brent Rocha, was born in 1971. Laci worked on the farm from a young age and also enjoyed gardening with her mother. Sharon and Dennis divorced when Laci and her brother were young. Sharon and the children moved to Modesto, though the children visited the dairy farm on weekends. Sharon eventually married Ron Gransky, who helped raise Laci and Brent from the time Laci was 2 years old. Laci was a cheerleader in junior high and high school. After graduating from Thomas Downey High School, she attended California Polytechnic State University, majoring in ornamental horticulture. While at California Polytechnic, Scott worked at Pacific Cafe, a restaurant in Morro Bay. Laci would occasionally visit the restaurant to see a friend who also worked there. In mid-1994, Laci sent Scott her phone number. She also told her mother that she had met the man that she would marry. Scott later called Laci, and they began dating. As the relationship grew more serious, Scott put aside his dreams of professional golf in order to focus on a business career. The couple dated for 2 years and eventually moved in together. In 1997, after Laci graduated, they married at Sycamore Mineral Springs Resort. While Scott finished his senior year, Laci took a job in nearby Prunedale. Prosecutors later stated that, around this time, Scott engaged in his first extramarital affair, though they did not reveal the details of the relationship. Scott graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in agricultural business in June 1998, and the Petersons opened a sports bar in San Luis Obispo called The Shack. The Petersons decided to put The Shack up for sale when they moved to Laci's hometown of Modesto, California to start a family. They completed the sale in April 2001. In October 2000, the Petersons purchased a 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow house for $177,000 on Covina Avenue in an upscale neighborhood near East La Loma Park. Laci took a part-time job as a substitute teacher, and Scott got a job with TradeCorp USA, a newly founded subsidiary of a European fertilizer company, for which he earned a salary of $5,000 a month before taxes. Laci's family, including her mother and younger sister, related that she devoted much of her energy towards being the perfect housewife, enjoying cooking, entertaining and watching Martha Stewart. In 2002, Laci discovered she was pregnant. Her due date was February 10, 2003. The couple had planned to name their son Connor. In November 2002, Scott was introduced by a friend to Amber Fry, a Fresno massage therapist, and the two began a romantic relationship. On December 23, 2002, at 5:45 p.m., Laci and Scott went to Salon, the workplace of Laci's sister Amy Rocha, where Amy cut Scott's hair, as she did each month. Scott offered to pick up a fruit basket that Amy had ordered because he would be playing golf the next day at a course nearby the retailer. Prosecutors say Scott also told other people he would play golf on the day of Christmas Eve. Laci's mother, Sharon, spoke with Laci on the telephone around 8:30 that evening. The last 3 people known to have spoken to Laci before she disappeared were Amy, Sharon, and Scott. Scott later told police that he last saw his wife about 9:30 a.m. on December 24, when he left to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina. He said Laci was watching a Martha Stewart show about meringue and preparing to mop the floor, bake cookies, and walk the family dog to a nearby park. Karen Serviz, a neighbor of the Petersons, stated that she found the Petersons' dog, a golden retriever named Mackenzie, alone outside the home and returned him to the Petersons' backyard at around 10:30 a.m. She later testified that she had found the dog at 10:18. Another neighbor, Mike Chiavetta, said he saw Mackenzie at about 10:45 a.m., as he played catch with his own dog. The Modesto Bee also reported an unnamed female neighbor found the dog with muddy leash, wandering in the neighborhood. That neighbor put the dog in the Petersons' yard, not observing that anything was out of place. At 2:15 p.m., Scott left a message for Laci, stating, "Hey, beautiful. It's 2:15. I'm leaving Berkeley." Scott said he returned home that afternoon finding Laci's car in the driveway and the house empty. He also stated that he found Mackenzie in their backyard, and that he related this to Laci's mother, Sharon, though Sharon later denied this in her book. Scott showered and washed his clothes. A neighbor of Scott's later said that Scott has knocked on his door, asking if he had seen Laci. The neighbor and his wife both testified overhearing Scott saying that he had been golfing that day and had tried to call Laci. A relative of Laci's would also later testify that, when friends and family began gathering at the Peterson home that night, Scott said he had gone to play golf. Scott called his mother-in-law, Sharon, to ask if Laci was with her. Sharon subsequently said that call was when she learned Laci was missing. And Laci's stepfather both reported Laci missing. The police received the report of her disappearance shortly before 6 p.m. At the time of her disappearance, Laci was 7.5 months pregnant, with a due date of February 10, 2003. The couple had planned to name the baby boy Connor. The story attracted nationwide media interest. Modesto police detectives Alan Brocchini and John Bueller, the lead investigators on the case, responded to the missing person call. When they arrived at the Peterson home, Laci's keys, wallet and sunglasses were found in her purse in a closet. Bueller told ABC News in 2017, "I suspected Scott when I first met him. Didn't mean he did it, but I was a little bit thrown off by his calm, cool demeanor and his lack of questioning. He wasn't, 'Will you call me back? Can I have one of your cards? What are you guys doing now?'" Bueller further described Scott's behavior as a strange combination of polite and arrogant, disaffectedly distant and impatiently irritable. He just didn't seem like a man who was crushed or even greatly disturbed by his wife's disappearance and possible death. After Scott told the police that he had gone to fish for sturgeon at the Berkeley Marina, about 90 miles from the couple's Modesto home, detectives immediately launched a search. Though police later said they suspected foul play almost immediately, they did not treat the case as suspicious within the first few hours after the missing persons report was filed. During this period, Scott's in-laws defended him and portrayed him and Laci as the ideal couple, and public perception of Scott reflected this. As police continued to investigate, they grew more suspicious of Scott. On January 17, 2003, it became known that Scott had engaged in 2 other extramarital affairs prior to an affair with a woman named Amber Fry. Fry informed police of their relationship on December 30, 2002, shortly after discovering he was a person of interest in Laci's disappearance. She told detectives that she met Scott on November 20, and that he had initially told her he was single. She also informed police that Scott had told her on December 9, 2 weeks before Laci's disappearance, he was a widower, and it would be the first Christmas without his wife. Police considered whether this was an indication that Scott had already decided to kill Laci. Fry agreed to phone him while police recorded her subsequent phone conversations with Scott in the hopes of getting him to confess. Scott was arrested on April 18, 2003, near a La Jolla golf course, where he said he was meeting his father and brother for a game of golf. His naturally dark brown hair had been dyed blonde, and his Mercedes was overstuffed with miscellaneous items, including nearly $15,000 in cash, 12 Viagra tablets, survival gear, camping equipment, several changes of clothes, 4 cell phones, and 2 driver's licenses, his and his brother's. Scott's father, Lee Peterson, explained that Scott had used his brother's license the day before to get a San Diego resident discount at the golf course, and that Scott had been living out of his car because of the media attention. Police and prosecutors, however, saw these items as an indication that Scott had planned to flee to Mexico. On April 21, 2003, Scott was arraigned in Stanislaus County Superior Court before Judge Nancy Ashley. He was charged with 2 felony counts of murder with premeditation and special circumstances. He pleaded not guilty. Judge Al Girolami of Stanislaus County Superior Court moved his trial to San Mateo County because of the concern so many people in Stanislaus had made up their minds about Scott's guilt.